بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Firstly, congratulations to all of you that have made it to session 3. I have managed to scare off the vast majority of you. So those of you that have not been scared off, congratulations for coming this far. I dare say it was maybe the maids that might have pushed people away. Who knows? Sometimes certain things are so entrenched within society that you can't touch them. They're like the muqaddasat. During the time of the Holy Prophet, alcohol was one of those, and slavery was another one of those things. And so Islam phased them out in stages. And from my reading or my seeing reactions whenever they are mentioned, seems like that too is somewhat majorly ingrained within the tarbiyya of a child. Unfortunate as it is, we have over the past couple of sessions looked at different aspects, different riwayat that talk about raising a child, specifically those that are of the younger age. So we're talking about from the age of 0 to 7 or 8. And then there had been a request that I focus this session on those that are slightly older. So dealing with the problems and the issues of those from 8 until bulugh, and then beyond bulugh towards adulthood. We said one of the fundamental requirements in the tarbiyya of your child is the islah of yourself. If you yourself have not reformed, then you cannot hope to raise a child that also embodies that sense of reform. So when it comes to just preteens and teenagers, there are a number of things that we can extrapolate from the riwayat. And there are about 9-10 points that I will mention today regarding their tarbiyya. The first point is that in order to guide any nation or any people, you need to understand them. You need to understand their culture, what it is that they like, what it is that they hate, and what it is that is cool with them at that point in their life. What are the current trends? And trends for children, especially now, they change very quickly. When I was younger, it took a bit of time for people to get over the football league cards. It lasted for many years until Pokemon popped up its head, and everybody wanted a Pokemon card. And then alongside the Pokemon cards for many, many years, you ended up with the Tamagotchi. Does anyone remember Tamagotchis? So then that trend became, everybody had a Tamagotchi. The little pet you had to keep alive on your tiny little device. Feed it all the time, show it love. Otherwise, even though you fed it and you didn't show it love, it died of a broken heart, which was really annoying. But the point being that those trends lasted many years. But right now, trends, they change so fast. The amount of information, there was a study I was reading that the amount of information from the start of time until 2009, for example, was given to a person in 4 days. That's how many stimuli were in the world around you, in the current modern world. And they said, by the time we reach this year, i.e. 2022 and beyond, every single bit of information or stimuli from the start of time until that point will hit an individual in 24 hours. Because everywhere you look, there's advertising. You've got your phone, you've got your internet. Your phone is now pushing, because before phones were just your phones, and then they became smartphones. But now these smartphones track your behavior, and number two, they prompt you and push notifications to you in order to mold your behavior into a certain point. Every morning I get up and I pick up my phone and a notification pops up to say, did you sleep between the hours of 2 and 6 today? Confirm. Because it wants to track my sleep patterns. I've never confirmed it, but it wants to track my sleep patterns, because if I say yes, then when it reaches 2 a.m. it's going to bring up a notification and say, hey, go to sleep. It's your bedtime. And then when it reaches 6 a.m. or reaches 5:30 a.m., it's going to pop up a notification saying time to wake up. So our phones and the trends, your kids nowadays, or young people, not kids, kids are baby goats, children and young people, they go through trends very quickly. You have these weird fidget spinner things, right? And then after that, before you knew it, the fidget spinner wasn't cool. Now everybody wanted some sort of push scooter. And then that wasn't even cool. Now they want electric ones. And the electric one isn't cool because now they want that board that you stand on. I can't remember what you even call it. It's a hoverboard. Yeah, a hoverboard. I didn't even know what a hoverboard. I thought it was something from Back to the Future. You know when Marty McFly jumps on that and it hovers and he flies over. I thought it was that. But trends change so quickly now. Straight away something is in, and within a few weeks to months is gone, and you can't track it. So the first thing that an individual needs to do in order to guide, and this is general as well, but we're keeping in mind this age group of 8 to 16 towards 18, that 10 years. You need to understand what it is that they're going through. What is the trend right now? What is cool? What type of, before now it's all technology based, mostly. Before it used to be like, well, I was talking to someone yesterday, like, and he was saying, oh yeah, back in 92 or somewhere, at some point, I remember like, I used to have the Reebok pumps, and they were the thing. They were Reebok trainers, and you used to pump them up, and they used to fit around your feet. And they were all the rage. But right now, kids aren't really interested in that sort of stuff. Young people, at least, it's more so technology based and things like that. But you can have that conversation or research on the internet. What is it that they're into right now? Because the cartoons that are on TV right now, the shows that are on TV right now, are vastly different. And especially because here, I don't know if you guys, do they have like Tanzanian cartoons? Or is it just Sonic the Hedgehog dubbed in Swahili? Yeah? So, I don't even know if Sonic the Hedgehog's a cartoon anymore. Or Paw Patrol or something, right? That is dubbed in Swahili. Because if it is, then there's the first problem that you will face Because what is happening is a Western ideology is being pushed to your kids anyway. So you're up against it massively right now, because you're not just having to deal with the wider culture here, you're having to deal with the fact that the world is a global village, and the mindsets are not being set here. They're being set thousands of miles away in, British broadcasting house, where they're, pumping out all of these things, or Nickelodeon or something. They're pushing out all of these new trends to them. So that's one thing that you need to understand and learn how to counter. Because the ideals that are being put out, there's this thing, there's this cartoon, Peppa Pig. So everyone heard of Peppa Pig. And it's no, nothing wrong with a pig. Culturally we're like, oh my God, a pig. It's najis. Yeah, it's najis. So what? Still a creation of Allah, still created in perfection. But according to the Sharia that He has put down currently in this world, the pig is considered najis. Nothing bad. But the problem with that show is the interaction that she has with her parents. And I remember someone was like, oh yeah, no, it's a great show, it's fine, it's no problem. Until, the daughter came home and was like, Daddy Pig. And he was like, no more. No more, because she called her dad a pig. And so the thing is that a lot of these behaviors are being taught, especially when we are hands off the tarbiyya of our child, i.e. they only see us at the breakfast table or for lunch or whatever. All the other time, the maid is carrying them around and doing everything, or putting them in front of the TV. You cannot raise a child with the deen in that way. It's impossible. Not true deen. Like if you're looking to the ideals of Hujr ibn Adi or Mitham Tammar, or looking at Ammar Yasir, then you will not get that by handing your child off to someone else to raise for the majority of the day. Yeah, here and there, 10, 15, 20 minutes, you need a break. But the majority of the day, then you're like, man, why doesn't my kid never listen to me? Why is my child rebelling against me? Why does my child not want to come to the masjid? Because it hasn't been instilled in that child. Hasn't been instilled in that child. And that instillment can only come from the parents, and especially the mother. Especially the mother. Because that Jamal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that shafqat of Allah has been placed mostly within the mother. The father should have it as well. But I'm saying the main influence on a child's life is certainly the mother. So understand the trends that are going on. The next thing is, always start with love. When you want to teach them something, you want to correct them about something, make sure it's with love. It's not you screaming down the house, and you're trying to get this child to listen. Yeah, at times it's happened for so many years that now it's just part and parcel of it, because the only way to teach the child, because you haven't been, or a person isn't involved in the early tarbiyya of their child, now the only way they know, because they don't understand their own child psychology. When they, I've heard of people that were recently telling me like, yeah, my kid's freaking out, my maid's really good, I just give it to her and she just calms them right down. That's not the job. That shows that you've lost it. And now you've got to pull it back. Because that shows that this child has now formed an attachment elsewhere other than the parents. Now you need to pull it back, and how you do that is you start with love. You have to start with love. If a child does something wrong, correction with love. There's one of the famous ulama and urafa, Marhum Haj Akhund Mullah Abbas Tarbiyya. One of his students was an alim ad-din. He says that when I was younger, what we would do whenever there was like some sort of majlis going on around people's houses, at that time they used to light candles on their homes. So we used to, a group of us, we used to run around and get these stones, and we used to throw them at the house or try and hit the lantern, and then or knock on the doors and hide. I don't know, in England we used to play this game, it was called knock door ginger, and you used to run to someone's house and knock on their front door and then go, and then open it and you've hidden somewhere, right? So he's Mullah Abbas Tarbiyya, he's saying that this is the his student saying this is the game that we used to play. He says one day we would go either hide under the house or hide like near the basement. So when the person opened, because in Iran you have like basements and then you have the first floor. So we used to hide in the darkness of the stairs of the basement, and then the person would open and they wouldn't see anyone, and then we'd run away. He says this one time we went and we knocked on the door of this person, and as we were trying to run away, someone grabbed my hand from the darkness. And turned around and saw it was Mullah Abbas Tarbiyya. He says, come with me, come. And so he says he took us inside the house. When we reached inside the house, he said, look, these young men, they've been playing so much today, and they've been having so much fun. They must be tired, they must be hungry, they must be thirsty. Please bring them some food and drink and whatever they want to eat. And he says, because they are my guests today. And so he took them inside, and he goes, that effect or that event changed my life so much that I became a student of Mullah Abbas Tarbiyya. And now he was an alim ad-din, known himself, but when he was younger, it was absolute terror, as it were. But that one point of showing love brought him towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, there's a very interesting narration between him and Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. Where Imam is saying to him, what is courage? What is this? So he says to him, my son, what is the way to prevent slips or evils, stop it from spreading? Imam Hassan alayhi salam says, counter evil with good. Counter evil with good. Your child does something wrong, something bad, understand it, and then counter that with love, the behavior with love. Don't scream down the house, don't shout, don't smack, but rather counter it with love. And it might be something new to you and to the child, maybe, I don't know. You may not have done this approach before, is always the scream approach. I don't know, but it will be something that we need to sort of inculcate within our Tarbiyya ways. Like, understand what it is that triggers your child into certain behaviors. When I can't believe it, my kid always acts up when I've got people over. Always acts up. I don't know why my child does that. Every time we have guests in the house, always acts up. Crying, screaming, knocking things over, doing something. And I always have to just hand him over to the maid, get him away. But You need to understand the reason why that is happening. Maybe it is that the child doesn't feel loved at that moment. That the attention of the parents is focused totally on the guests. There's no feeling of security for a child because all they ever see is their parents are fighting and bickering constantly. Or, the father is always absent, or the mother is always subject to the mother-in-law's snide comments. Or the mother's always telling her sisters on the phone how evil her mother-in-law is and how useless her husband is. So this doesn't create security for a child. Or, there's no stability in the relationship of the husband and wife. Thus, it doesn't allow for a secure attachment to be created between the child and the parents. So in order to create that, it needs to start with love. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says that be friends with your children. And he addresses fathers specifically. He says, be friends with your children. For friendship with your children brings kinship with the sons. I.e., if you're friendly at a friend level with your children, it will keep the children together. It will keep the sons together. Their sons, daughters, everyone keeps them all together. So start with love. Always be loving. Try and understand and then correct or explain things with love. At this age, from 8 hitting the teens and above, now the force of it, especially when you go to bulugh, so bulugh onwards now, bulugh onwards, forcing doesn't work. Forcing no longer works. Don't force a child to do something. Rather use dala'il, evidences that are aqli. Appeal to their aql. Appeal to, their intelligence. One of the things that I've noted here, and from my conversations with the young people in my discussion circles on Saturdays that I have with them, is that, and even older actually, that they don't feel like they're taken seriously. Be it at an organizational level, i.e. the committee and so, or even at home. They don't feel like they've been empowered or that they can make judgment. It's like when you get old, then that's when you can make a decision. Otherwise, up until that point, you're a child, you don't know anything. So be quiet. Yeah? So at this age, it must be a conversation. Sit down, understand. Like, look, this is why we're doing it, and try and teach it using that aqli dalil. And then if you want to tackle a particular problem, first try correcting behaviors in a non-direct way. In a non-direct way. What do we mean by that? The Holy Quran gives us a precedent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Holy Prophet, O Prophet, if your parents were to reach a ripe old age, make sure that you do not shout at them or scream at them or say uff towards them. Yeah? But the Holy Prophet's parents died when he was children. When he was a child, sorry. They died when he was a child. So what's God saying here. And the revelation of the Holy Quran came much later. His parents had been dead for some 30 plus, 35, 37 plus years. So we understand the Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he also says that many of the ayat of the Holy Quran that are addressed to the Holy Prophet are not specific to the life of the Holy Prophet, but rather there were others around him that had these problems, but Allah addressed him in order to correct those problems in a non-direct way. We find it in the seerah of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam. Imam al-Hasan, Imam al-Hussein correcting the old man's wudu, famous story. In a non-direct way, indirectly trying to correct that individual's mistakes. So always try and address issues in a non-direct way, in a very friendly, discussion-y type thing, saying, oh, you know what, you realize that, I don't know, your child is doing something wrong. My mind's blank right now. He's texting a girl or something, or she's texting a guy. Yeah? Let's go with that one. That seems to be a common theme here as well. So many people come up to me afterwards and like, do you know, the people at my school. Anyway, so if you discover that, now how do you deal with it? You go up and take their phone and smash it, and this is why I raised you, to hell with you, God forbid the day I ever give birth to you. Or is it that we go about it in an indirect way? Say, you know what? And not in this way either. Oh, you know, Fulan's daughter, she was texting a guy and what? No, because then you ended up in trying to do Tarbiyya through ghibah. But a lot of the times that's what we do. Yeah, or we try and the second Imam, he has a hadith, he says, the destruction of man is three things: al-hirs, greed, hasad, jealousy, and I think the third thing he says is pride. Yeah, pride, jealousy, and greed. Now, what we do is, first and foremost, if we want to correct our child, we're like, look at Fulan's kid. He got better grades than you, and he's in class with you, and you don't. So straight away we're creating hirs, that hasad, that jealousy. Straight away we're creating that jealousy. Or then we try and, tell them to be more responsible with their things. Take care of them. Someone else is coming, you better hide that because that kid's going to break this. And we want them to be more responsible with their things. But we're like, you better hide that. That other kid that's coming over, your cousin, or that, is jungly, he's going to break it. Straight away we've created hirs, that greed in that child. Or we try and encourage them. Oh, my son, my daughter, you're so amazing. Not like that other jungly child. You know those, oh man, you should have seen how jungly that child was. He was just running around everywhere. But our bacha, he sat there quietly, so good. You've created pride in the child. We're sowing these seeds. We're sowing them every day, deep into the nafs of the child, so that when they reach adulthood, now the arrogance is on level 9,000, and their greed, it knows no bounds. Their jealousy, they're going to do anything and everything. They'll blow on as many knots as they need and visit as many witch doctors as they want in order to get what they want. Because I created that. So, try and address in a non-direct way. Say, there's a problem that's going on in society. What do you guys think about it? Like, how do we counter it There's all these mahrams, there's these conversations and things happening. There was this incident, or I don't know, somewhere in America of someone being kidnapped, and you have to be so careful. Like, talk to them like an adult, while understanding that they're still children and their minds are still developing, but try and make them feel empowered in that conversation. Try and correct that behavior. Non-direct way. If the non-direct way doesn't work, then you move to a direct way. Now the direct way isn't a chappal or a spoon to the head. Wooden spoons, they were the worst. So a wooden spoon or something, that's not the direct way that Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam speak about. They say, look, if you want to admonish your child in a direct way, you've realized that your child has done something wrong, non-direct isn't working, so now you need to directly have a conversation with this person. And again, I'm saying child, all of these apply to every aspect of our life, how we interact with others as adults as well. But how we interact with our child when they're young shall also dictate how they will then act as they are adults, when they are adults. If a child sees parents being sly, parents are like whispering things in the background, doing the ghiba about people plotting and planning and trying to overcome stuff, it's not going to work. One of the common things, because it's more pertinent here, you guys love like committees and meetings and stuff like that. There's a meeting for everything and anything. And so what you have is this need sometimes that people form caucuses within committees, and they will discuss things and be like, yeah, you know what, they're going to vote this way, but we're going to go in and we're going to, we'll vote this way. And they'll have private meetings before, and our children are watching this. So what you're doing is you're creating that slyness within a child. That's why. So anyway, if you need to directly address a problem. So the first thing is do it in private. Don't have a go at your child in public or in front of their other siblings. Do it in private, where no one else can see. That the child doesn't at any point think that, everyone else can see me, and they feel embarrassed. The same way as an adult, if I've done something wrong, if I'm doing some wudu wrong at masjid, and someone comes, and we've all had this incident when we were younger, or even right now, right? We're doing something and some auntie or some uncle comes out and says, hey, listen, you're doing that wrong, you don't know how to do it. We don't want to be admonished in public. Nobody wants to be admonished in public. Neither do your children, right? So do it in private. Second, when you admonish them, when you tell them off, do it with love. Lovingly tell them off. As difficult as that may be. But try and explain with love. The third thing the riwayat say is make sure it's short and to the point. Don't turn it into a lecture. Short and to the point. Don't bring up previous things. You are always like this. Remember last time I overlooked this and you did this and you did this and you did this, but now you're getting out of hand. So don't bring up the past. Deal with what has happened and make sure it's short and it's to the point. The seventh Imam, he has a narration, he says that whoever ruins the sweetness of his words with excessive talk has destroyed his aql. There's something short, and this at times is the disease of us speakers. Something that I could deliver in 15 minutes, but I'm like, right, they've given me 30 minutes and I'm going to go up to 40 minutes, and so now let's see how I can increase the amount of waffle I can add and, you know, buffer this out before I actually make my point. Yeah? Balagha or fasaha is that, being able to deliver something in the shortest, a huge amount of information in the shortest amount of time. So it says, make sure it's short and to the point. Don't lengthen the whole process. The next thing in terms of tarbiyya of the child is in terms of the deen. The sixth Imam, he says that teach them the deen quick, your children. Teach them our sayings, or he says, teach your children our sayings, our teachings before the murja'i. The murja'i were some deviants at the time of the sixth Imam, before the deviants get to them. Why have we got such a problem? Why are so many people leaving or a decent number of people being misguided, a youth being misguided, or people leaving the deen and becoming atheists? Because we never got in at the right time. See, when I should have been teaching them about the deen, when I should have been instilling the teachings and the love of Ahlul Bayt and the responsibilities of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in them, they were either off with the maid or watching Peppa Pig. Because I was too busy. So now I'm like, what do I do with my kids? It's too late. And you can make it fun. You know, the teaching of Ahlul Bayt, their teachings and stuff. It says, look, get there quick. And the quickest way to do it is when you live it in your own life. And you do all of the aforementioned things in the right way, with hikmah, with understanding. And you teach them, you embody those teachings yourself. The next one is quite interesting. The Imam alayhi salam, he says that, and this is in Nahj al-Balagha, Amir Mu'mineen, he advises people, he says that live in a city where there is a large Muslim population, where there is a strong Muslim presence, because then that will automatically create a little buffer for you. Not much, but just a bit of breathing space, because the external culture is a little bit more understanding of Islam, or is a little inclined towards Islam. The next thing that he says is that make sure that your own associations of your own family, your family unit, is only with other good households. If you see that there is a certain spiritual disease, now we're not anyone to judge, but there are certain things that you see in people. I don't know, there's some people where you think, I don't know if this person is being super truthful to my face or not. I don't know, and not in a suspicious way, but just be like, there's just too many weird things that happen when this person is around. Like, I tell them something in private and all of a sudden it's public knowledge. And so what I want to do is, I don't want that characteristic to be either imprinted on me or my children. So you slowly pull away. You slowly pull away. You see someone who's always negative, they sap the energy out of you. They do, honestly, negative people. And if you're a negative person, please become more positive. You're a negative person just saps the energy because they're just complaining about things. Constantly, there's something to complain about. And so I'll always avoid those people. Try and associate with households that have good Islamic values, good akhlaq. Not just good Islamic values, right? It's good akhlaq. Not that they just come to mosque every week and the father's in the front line and because we all know it, right? There were families when we were growing up that was super religious, and everyone's like, oh, mashallah, these guys are amazing, and their kid was out drinking at school, or their daughter, as soon as she reached school, would rip off her hijab. And you're like, you don't know your own kid. And everyone's like, oh yeah, and they're like, oh, mashallah. So, not those that are outwardly religious, but those that embody good akhlaq. They're just nice people. Associate with those households. So association with good households. Go mingle with them, let your children be in that environment as well. And also, I think there's another thing in terms of association. There's one thing in creating aspirations in your child, but there's a fine line with instilling greed into that child as well. Ambition is different. Ambition is what drives a person. قدر الرجل على قدر همته. The worth of an individual is based upon their ambition, Imam Ali alayhi salam says. Now, my desire is to be amongst the powerful, the influential, and the wealthy. But is that the desire of my nafs? Or is that the desire that I actually think that these people will improve me? More than likely, many times, talking about myself, my association with these people is for me to get a little bit of influence. Or for me to say, oh, I know Fulan person. Or for me to be able to throw my weight around and get things done at a government level, for example. But what that does for my child, association with such individuals, is the potential for creating hubb ad-dunya. Now there are many influential, wealthy people that don't have hubb ad-dunya. Allah has blessed them with these things. And yes, when you see that genuinely, this person is down to earth, then yeah, alhamdulillah, and they are a good influence on your child in the sense of, look, all of this wealth, but the character is maintained and the taqwa is there. This is how, you should be, they're paying their dues and all of these things. So when it comes to selecting the households that you interact with, look carefully. Also look at your own household. Are you like the sort of household that's going to be a bad influence on someone? If you are, then work on your household. Work on it. The next thing, and arguably very important, in fact, probably one of the most important things, because all of the other things can sort of go to one side if this isn't right, and that is friend selection. Who are your children friends with? And have we set a criterion for them to choose their friends? Like, listen, have I ever sat down with my child and said, look, when you're looking for a friend, you need to look for this characteristic, this. It's not. I mean, kids naturally gravitate towards the popular person in school, and they want to be with that popular person. So, many a nation will be dragged to hell because of their friends. The Holy Quran says there will be people that will call out, woe unto me, لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا. How I wish I hadn't taken that person to be my friend. Because of them today I'm going to hell. Nuh alayhi salam, his son, is the son of a Nabi of God. The house is good. The Tarbiyya is first class. But the friends, when we look at the riwayat, is that he went and made friends with some bad people. So the friends are there. The son of the 7th Imam, Ma'soom Imam father, he rejects the imamate of the 8th Imam. Says, no, my brother isn't the Imam. Ja'far al-Kadhab, the uncle of the 12th Imam. Father's an Imam, brother's an Imam. But, he's vying for that imamate himself. He wants to be, but he can't have it. So he's trying to make a pact with the Khalifa. So friends, the muhit, the environment outside of your home, what are you exposing them to? And so what do we look for in a friend? Very briefly, I'll go through them very quickly. Humble. Yeah, riwayat say when you look for a friend, look for someone who's humble. One that respects others and their views. One that does not exaggerate or is extreme in their views, but adopts a middle path, is very sort of middle of the road. One that is truthful and fulfills promises. One that is aqil, is smart. It doesn't have to be book smart, but smart. Not a jahil. It's not ignorant. Doesn't act in a ahmaqi way, like in a stupid way. He acts before he thinks, or she acts before she thinks. And one that is not an open sinner. Doesn't openly sin outside. Okay, last 3 points, I promise. In terms of raising teens. And that is, the next point is, make sure you give them good role models. Who are their role models? As teens, now they start to instantly try and look for people that they aspire to. Is it the guy, I don't know his name, the guy on the billboards holding the Pepsi bottle, heard he's some rapper or something like that? Is he their inspiration? Or is he or their role model sitting in England somewhere, and I don't know. Who's their role model? Who do you want your child to mold themselves around? Have you taught them about Amir al-Mu'mineen, about Ahl Bayt, about Rasulullah? Rasulullah is he is the ultimate role model. He is the reason for all of existence. The khulq, the akhlaq of the Holy Prophet. Have we talked about it? Have we instilled it? Have we made it fun, like they want to aspire? And then, if they want someone more, are we finding someone that is sort of more relatable to them as well, i.e. that's living, that's in front of them? And also in terms of the role model as well, try and find an age-appropriate role model. Sometimes we're like, hey, look, that's Ayatollah Sistani, that should be your role model. And you're like, the child's like, huh? There's nothing wrong with Ayatollah Sistani being a role model. In fact, he is a role model. But I'm talking about what's practically how your child will relate and understand. Well, show him Ayatollah Sistani, what? Like, can't relate. And so, who is it that you want to create as a role model for your child? Who is it that you talk about often? Whose shows are you watching more often than not? That they see you being able to, oh, they see you, you know, emulating that person. What YouTube videos are you watching? You know, everybody's got their favorite YouTuber, right? It could be hijab designs by, I don't know, whatever, or it could be, you know, financial advice by Trevor, or, you know, all sorts. People watch different things, or supercar somebody, or, you know, different people that stuff they watch. But that will also then influence how you then guide your children. So good role models. The next one's quite interesting, especially for teens as well. Political understanding. Give them a political understanding of the political structures of the world, the political structure of your country, and the potential flaws and the downsides. And the reason for that is that so that they are not enslaved by a system. You only become enslaved by a system when you don't actually understand it. But if you understand it and you understand its flaws and everything, you don't become enslaved to that particular system. Rather, you can step out of it and look down, not in like, and look at it in its totality. But if I'm involved in the political scene, or I'm trying to get involved, but I don't understand the nuances of how everything works, then I'm just a cog in that machinery. But if we empower our children with the political understanding, also the lives of the Imams were political as well. Karbala was a political move as well, though solely for Allah, but it had political ramifications as well. So to be able to give them that political strength, those political smarts as they're growing up, knowing how to navigate, not Jamaat politics. That's as dirty as they come. Not your Jamaat, of course, mashallah, but other Jamaats, you know, like you'd expect this to be like the Jamaat or the AGMs to be the most respectful, mu'mineen, mutadayyineen, all of these worshippers, all of the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen. You wouldn't expect someone to be throwing chairs at another person, but it's happened in Shia communities. In the middle of an AGM, a fight broke out. Someone's throwing chairs at someone. I didn't like what you said. Why is there a penny missing from this budget? And they go on for like 4, 5, 6 hours, sometimes days. So not that sort of political thing. And then we look at someone, we're like, yeah, this person's good. Because we view politics as Muawiyan politics, right? So when we try and teach political astuteness to our children, we try and teach Muawiyan politics. Someone came to Amir al-Mu'mineen and said, look, Ya Ali, look how smart, how aqil Muawiyah is. How he's turned the whole of Sham against you. You, Ali, with all your fada'il. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says to him, tilka hilatun. That's not aql. That's heel, makr, that's slyness, that's deception. Al-aqlu ma ubida bihi ar-Rahman. The aql is that which takes you towards the ibadat of the Rahman. What is unfortunate is, in our institutions, there is politics, but it is the politics of Muawiyah, not the politics of Ali. And so when we push our child, and everyone, people really aspire, like, mashallah, my son or my daughter will be part of Africa Federation one day, or part of, I don't know why, but they'll be pushing. And so we sort of prepare them, but we prepare them with the Muawiyan politics. Because we're like, hey, politics of Ali alayhi salam doesn't work in Jamaat politics. You know, you have to be, everyone else is doing Muawiyah politics. You need to be doing Muawiyah politics. Again, before anyone tweets this, I'm not talking about here. I'm saying as a general, all over the world type of thing. That is the reality. What was Muawiyah politics? Go off into the corner, have a little conversation with this person, turn them against that person. Go off, have a conversation here, turn them against that person. Go here, divide, conquer everyone, force a few people's hands. Well, that was not Muawiyah politics. Politics of Amir al-Mu'mineen was justice. Even if it's someone like Qanbar, and Qanbar has been ordered to whip someone 30 lashes, and he ends up whipping him 40. And Qanbar, that is so dear to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, why did you whip him 40? He says, sorry, Ya Ali, I got a bit too excited. He tells the man that's just been whipped, stand up, take the whip, Qanbar, take off your top. He tells him to stand there, and he tells the man, whip Qanbar 10 times. He whipped you 10 more. For us, that's like, whoa, what? He was supposed to be his friend. So there are no friends in the hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to the hadd of Allah, when it comes to the boundaries that God has set. So when we teach them this political astuteness and understanding, make sure we teach them how it is that Amir al-Mu'mineen dealt with these things, how it is that the politics of Imam al-Sadiq or the politics of Imam al-Kadhim and all of these individuals, because every Imam had a political sphere to their life, though it was not in government per se, but how it is distinctive from Muawiyan politics. All of these secret meetings, all of these sort of calls, and this is Muawiyan politics. Then the last point, when it comes to their ibadat, don't force them to do extra. Let them rationalize the ibadat as well. And the rationalization of the ibadat, don't wait till they're like 15, 16 and be like, okay, now beta, I need to sit you down, let me explain to you why we're doing what we're doing. They need to be doing it first. They need to be doing it first. You need to have instilled that with love, as we mentioned in the previous sessions, through your own actions, that they want to do it, and then as they grow and their mind develops, then you begin to explain to them the rationalization behind what we are doing. But don't force them to do extra just yet. They're in their teens. Don't be like, did you pray your mustahab? Did you do the extra? Did you do your 8 rakats for Dhuhr and 8 for Asr, and then your 4 and 4 wajib? Because you're going to push them away. Especially right now, it's tender times, very, very sort of delicate times. So have the wajibat part of their regime from before they reach the age of taklif anyway. Then when they begin to reach the age of taklif, start to explain, start to rationalize it. You see, there is a principle in Islam which is Islam first, then Iman. We sometimes take it the other way. We're like, oh, when I go to Hajj, then I'll stop doing ghibah. Yeah? When I go to Hajj and God will, or I go on ziyarat, God will illuminate my heart, then I'll do, for example, I don't know, proper hijab. Or I go to ziyarat, then I'll grow a beard. Yeah? Once I've been to ziyarat. But that's not the way it works. First is submission without understanding. You know there's a God, you know that this God wants something from you, you do it. Whether you like it or not, you do it. Those are your wajibat. You like it or not, you do it. But through that consistency, eventually you will rationalize and understand it. And then when you understand it and you love it, that becomes Iman. Iman doesn't come before Islam. So this whole, I'm waiting for an epiphany, I'm waiting for my moment of enlightenment, that ain't gonna come until you do the things first. You have to do those things first. You have to submit and try and learn and understand. Then Iman comes. So same with your children. Get their wajibat down. Don't bog them down with all the other mustahabbat. Yes, teach them du'as and things like that. But don't bog them down with all of these things. Rather, get their wajibat done, and then as they get older, 13, 14, 15, they're understanding. You don't wait for them to come and ask. You start the conversation about trying to rationalize why we do ibadat. But first you need to understand why we do it as well. What are the benefits to it? What is it that we can, and you rationalize it for them. You make that love of God and love of Ahlul Bayt something that they cherish. They cherish it. Because you've taught it with love the whole way, you cherish it. When you go to talk to them about things, for example, when we're talking about admonish with love, say, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created many creatures in this world, but He only chose one to be the best of all of them. The angels can only be angels, and the jinn, they can never really ascend that high. They'll be they can stay where they are, down to the animals and stuff like that. You have the animals who can never end up becoming an angel. You never end up with like a really mutadayyin pig that ends up like flying to the heavens. Their test is totally different. So you as a human being have been given the ability to be above the angels, beyond the realms of existence, قَابَ قَوْسَيْنَ أَوْ أَدْنَى. Only the son of Adam may transverse to that point. But at the same time, you also have the ability, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَزَلٌ. They are like cattle, like animals. No, they are worse. So we have this range within ourselves. Now you have been created to be amazing. You have been created to dwell beyond the angels. It doesn't suit you as the follower of Ahlul Bayt to be doing such actions. In a way of doing it. We find it in the life of Imam Sadiq, and we'll end at that point. One of the so-called Shias, he claimed to be a Shia, he had a drinking problem during the time of Imam Sadiq. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam realized that at that time the Khalifa would hand out, the social security or the welfare and things like that to the people from their share from Bayt al-Mal. In the Islamic system, everybody gets a share from Bayt al-Mal. So this individual, he doesn't go to pick up his share because he's fighting off a hangover. There's no other way of putting it. He went out the night before, had a great time, and the next morning he's out of it. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he goes to the court of the Khalifa and he takes that person's share. He comes to his house and he says, oh look, I got your share for you, there you are. As he's leaving, he says to him, listen, there are bad things that others do. And when they do them, they're bad. they're bad. But you, as one of our Shi'as, when you do them, it's much worse, because you're associated to us, and we hold you in such high regard. And when others do good, it's good. But when you do good, because you are our Shia, that good is far greater, has much larger ramifications, because the whole world is looking at the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. He says that, he leaves. That companion from that day on left all sin, left all alcohol, everything. So never touched it again. Why Imam Sadiq didn't go up to him and say, you drunkard, you this, you Yazid, you whatever? Just through a non-direct way. He didn't even mention the fact that he was, I'm talking about you. He says, I'll give you a piece of advice that I tell everyone. So these are those few points. I say few, there was a lot more than a few, that we have in riwayat in regards to Tarbiyyat al-Nawjawan, Tarbiyyat of the young adolescents, and then those that reach going through puberty until adolescence towards adulthood. There are many other things, many other aspects of it that are spoken about, but these were the broad topics that are there. And inshallah, you just got to put a plan in place for yourself. It's all about a plan. You need to have a plan. From the moment that child is born, how am I going to do the tarbiyya of this child? At times it's almost showing off your worship in front of the child. So making sure that the kid is playing, they've got a playroom, or there's somewhere that they're going, you pray in that particular area where you know they'll pass. Let them come and stand on your musalla, let them come and steal your turba, do whatever. Have another one in your pocket. In fact, we have riwayat that mothers can lift their children and pray salah. Yeah, if the child is running around, not for fathers, we don't have that. But for mothers, yeah, if the child is crying or the child won't settle in its namaz time, she can hold the child and pray, then lay the child down, sujood and all of that, and then lift the child back up and continue her prayers. So, but you need to have a plan. Write it down, even better. Write it down, a set of tasks for yourself that I'm going to make sure that I do in front of my kid. Not just showing off, but actually, I agree, and I like these things as well, and I want to instill them in my child. So those things you must have a plan for. It can't be ad hoc. At least at the back of your mind. What am I doing? This, every word, everything that I'm doing in front of this child, they're absorbing and taking all of it in. Thank you very much for listening so attentively. If you have any questions, we can take them now, or if you're too tired, you can just go home. So. Are there any questions? Okay, so we'll have to get the papers out again, I guess. So last week, someone asked me a question. I don't think that person is in the room actually. They wrote it on a piece of paper, but the person, I'm pretty sure, is not in the room. In regards to pornography. How do we deal with issues with pornography? And it is kind of growing massively in boys and girls, to be honest. It comes down to the things that I've discussed, i.e., first of all, you try and address it with love, try and address it in a non-direct way, then address it in a direct way. However, if it's become an addiction, because now this is like a new thing in psychology that is being discussed, and it has some weight to it, in the sense of that it gives the same sense of high as cocaine or heroin and such likes. It uses the same dopamine pathways when they watch it, and so they very quickly become addicted to that, and then that behavior can easily get out of control. In terms of any sort of addiction, there are 3 or 4 things that we say, in order to overcome certain addictions from a psychological perspective. And also this works with, if I have a bad habit, whatever it is, a riba, for example, or lying, or I don't know, whatever it is. So if I have a bad habit, this also works for that. The first is to set goals for oneself. Just like any other behavioral change, you need to set goals. Like today, my aim, and you can work with your child or the teen that has this problem, like my aim today is that I won't watch it. I'm not gonna look at this haram. And then you sort of monitor that. Second thing is change your environment. If the environment that you're in is an environment that you usually sin in, we do the same with like drug addicts and stuff. One of the first steps is don't go to a place where you used to take drugs or used to buy drugs, or a person who you used to take drugs with, because it's a trigger. So stay away from like those sort of environments, specifically when it comes to pornography. Change settings on a computer, make it more difficult for yourself or for an individual to access it. Try and gain help, anything. Surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with mutadayyinin, with mu'mineen, and things like that will support you throughout, helping you overcome that bad habit. Distract yourself with other things. Take up a hobby. If your child has a bad habit, or and you want to try and do a non-direct approach, just make them so busy with other hobbies that they can't do anything else. And then exercise. Exercise in terms of any sort of addiction, having a strong exercise regime, staying physically active will help refocus the mind, make the child too tired to think about anything else. So it's a good way of being able to focus that extra energy, as it were, in a more positive light. Inshallah. Sensible, thank you. Only 2, lucky me. Okay. In terms of school and education, options are available, i.e. Islamic schools versus non-Islamic. But Islamic schools have good uniform, no music and no pork, but akhlaq is poor. Whereas non-Islamic schools are acing in akhlaq. What environment is more favorable for the Muslim child? Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I guess your child is only at school for a few hours, and you can counter that. It takes a lot of time, and effort, but you can counter that. I would say that being in a more godly environment, using that term loosely, especially in this day and age, may be more effective. Especially here in Dar. In the UK and other places, I have my own opinions in regards to Islamic schools. Because I went to university in Leicester, and there's a multitude of Islamic schools there. What I realized is that it sort of created socially maladjusted people. Muslims are a major minority in that country anyway, right? but it created sort of socially maladjusted people in the sense of they didn't know how to react or interact with a non-Muslim per se, and they also felt a sense of inferiority when they were faced with for example, a white person. They were faced with that sense of inferiority, and they wouldn't be able to put forward a point, even though they could be having a PhD, and the white person couldn't have even finished high school, but there was this reluctance. And so Islamic schools in the UK have some way to go to try and remove those boundaries of that social maladjustment. But I think here, because the society at large is still very much culturally inclined to Islam. I know it's not a Muslim country per se, but there's still many more Islamic values. Sending to an Islamic school is probably good, but at the same time, letting them be exposed to other things and having that discussion with them at home, so to counter any sort of akhlaqi issues. Obviously, if you see that the school isn't good for my child's mental health, i.e. they're being bullied and this child is now starting to hate Islam, then yeah, take them out, put them in a non-Muslim school. But it might be too far. It's a very fine line. You've got to balance it out. It's a very difficult question, but I would say that maybe here an Islamic school might be a better option with proper parental tarbiyya at home. When we limit technology to kids, like playing games and watching movies, what do we tell them to do, especially boys, when mother goes to mosque or majlis? Make them join a sports club, send them to kung fu, make them do martial arts, horse riding, archery, whatever. The Holy Prophet says that teach your children horse riding, archery, swimming, from when they're younger. Make them do something else. And yeah, again, when you go to mosque, maybe it's the ladies' majlis, I'm assuming, so that's why they're not coming with you. But sometimes it is. What do we do when we go to mosque and we leave our kids at home? Well, don't leave your kids at home. Bring them to mosque. They should be at mosque as well. Why are you not bringing your children? But I'm assuming the questioner is asking in terms of a ladies' majlis. Yeah, then find some other fun activity for them to do. Have a technology detox. Do it with them. Say, hey, how about a 3-day technology detox? Yeah, and if it means going out into the middle of nowhere where there's no cell reception, because we're yeah, my kid's on social media too much and I'm there scrolling Instagram myself. So obviously you're not going to change their behavior because they see you doing it all the time. And behavioral change and stuff like that, sometimes you have to deal with your own preconceived notions that you have in your mind about certain things. And it's uncomfortable. But it's how do I, when you go into Tarbiyya, it's do I want to instill the bad that I have into my child, as has been done for generations? For example, something like racism, or God forbid my child marries outside of my culture. God forbid my child marries a black person. All these racist diseases that we have, that we instill generation after generation after generation. Oh no, they're not like us, they're beneath us. These things will ultimately come back to haunt us, unfortunately, if we don't remove them from our own nafs, and we don't treat others with respect and things. Also, earning halal income is very important. We have a hadith that says haram income will affect 7 generations, not just yours. 7 generations from, because like even if there's one, like you fail your test, one mu'min in your generation, in your lineage, they can do shifa'ah for you. But 1 dirham of haram income, that corrupts 7 generations. So if I've lied, I've cheated, I've done something, bribed or made my way in order to get these deals, bribed courts and judges and things in order to get myself ahead, 7 generations are gone. So we have to be very, very careful in how we interact ourselves and how we interact with our children. Inshallah, we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all tawfiq to raise our children in the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and make our own lives more in line with the lives of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Wa akhiru da'wana lilhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa salamu alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.